Clearly, transparency still eludes us on both sides of the channel. Thank you for that and for explaining the situation there. It's clearly Brussels has some big decisions too. Now, what the Brussels is saying is that the Prime Minister, either doing a deal with Mr Corbyn or taking the most popular indicative vote, then has to go to Brussels and say, look, this is what we want now. This is what the Commons has voted for, and I'll try and do it by May the 22nd. And one of the options is the May deal with a customs union. That's what you've been proposing in the Commons. But tell me this, what is in the current withdrawal agreement and political declaration that would stop a customs union?
Oh, I vote for the current withdrawal. I voted 3 times for it.
So we could do
the political agreement is so vague that it encompasses what I really like. You could actually get a customs arrangement to get regulatory alignment look remarkably like the present customs union and the present single market.
So why are you adding on a customs union if it's already implicit?
To try to get the House of Commons to concentrate on a lowest common denominator for which I think that could be, should be, a majority. The customs union's quite an important thing because it solves most of the Irish border problem. And it gets all the car makers to start breathing again, and it enables you, with a bit of regulatory alignment, to keep Dover open and the Irish border.
But there's nothing to stop it as things stand. Sabine hold on. Sabine
Wayand persuade the House of Commons of that.
Well, Sabine Wayand, who is the number 2 to Barnier, she's the details person and done most of the work on it. She says that the deal as agreed with Britain requires a customs union as a basis of the future partnership. It's there.
Well, I agree. Open borders, you can't have open borders without a customs union and some degree of regulatory alignment. I agree with her, but the House of Commons won't buy that. The House of Commons might accept, if you spell it out clearly what you mean, that because of the economic advantages of a customs union, free access, the biggest international free market in the world, our biggest trading partner, you might buy a compromise. You're slightly undermining my position by pointing out that actually
it's already
that's
there.
why I voted for what
All right, but let me ask you this.
You could get there anyway.
We leave the EU, but somehow we stay in the customs union. At most, that would give us a right to be consulted. We would not be part of any trade negotiations.
Well, in practice we would, because we're one of the biggest parts of a 500 million market. We're 65 million and one of the richer ones.
But you can't be part of trade negotiations unless you're a member of the EU.
But you'll have... Well, at the moment, what happens is I've taken part in EU trade negotiations.
Yeah, but as part of the EU.
British government in them. Yes, the Commission negotiate on a mandate, as they're ordered to by the governments. If we're not, strictly speaking, a member, they will still consult us.
Consult is one thing, but we would not play a part in devising that mandate. The EU 27 will devise the mandate and the Commission will do the negotiations. They do not have to take account our interests.
Legally, formally, you're correct.
Yes.
I can tell you, having been in trade negotiations, there is a real world. And in the real world, when we're in the EU, they take more notice of the British than anybody else because we're the leading member on liberal economic reforms. Yes, but the idea that the British, the French and the Germans will not have a considerable say because you have more bargaining clout because it's those big markets that the other side of the table are trying to get into.
But hold on. Under your system, the EU would negotiate trade deals on our behalf. They may have consulted us, but we would not be involved in the decision-taking. They would negotiate a trade deal, say, with the United States, in which we would have to accept what they agreed on our behalf with the United States, but we would not necessarily be allowed into America. The Americans do not have to accept taking our goods in return.
You're sounding like a member of the ERG. It's your duty to be probing.
No, I'm sounding like someone who's trying to get across the facts, Ken Clarke.
What you're describing are the formal, legal facts of which room you're in. What actually happens in trade negotiations, as they go along, behindhand, there are all kinds of other contacts, and we would still be one of the 3 major economies in the EU, and in practice in Washington and in Brussels, the British would be involved.
Hold on. Look, first of all,
You're sounding like a rather pedantic lawyer on.
No, you're the lawyer. I'm just the journalist.
I'm a lawyer, precisely.
No, I'm sounding like someone who wants.
Lawyers
No, I'm sorry. You can't do Cambridge Union tactics with me on this because you don't. Just because you don't know the answer. I want to come back to this point at all. No, because it's not an answer. First of all, throughout these negotiations, the one thing the European Union has stuck to is the law and legal process. That has been clear from the beginning, and they've never deviated from that. I put it to you again that under your arrangement, the EU would negotiate on our behalf free trade deals over which we would not determine in the end, and the third party that we were negotiating with would not have to accept our goods on the same basis.
Oh, it would. It wouldn't. If we're in a customs union, we're going to be a party to the agreement. Once you're in a customs union, the free entry to our market is something the Americans are looking for. They want to sell us hormone-treated beef. I'll tell you what the problem is when you start dealing with the Americans.
No, I don't think you quite understand. The Americans would have access to our market. The EU would negotiate that. What the EU does not negotiate under your arrangement is our access to the American market.
We would have the same. We would be party.
Why? That's not how it works with Turkey. Turkey does not have reciprocity.
But Turkey's position is different from ours. Essentially, as far as customs, tariffs, and therefore trade agreements are concerned, what I'm proposing is we carry on as now, except the formality would change. Strictly speaking, when the final formal council meeting is held to give the mandate to the negotiators and
we won't be there.
We won't be there. We'll have been there the day before in the talks, and we'll be there the day afterwards, and we'll be having our own contact with both sides.
Where will we be the day afterwards? There is no guaranteed reciprocity.
Where I was when I was involved in the TTIP.
But you were in. Clarke, you were in the EU then. We had a say. There is no example in which the EU has allowed a third party to be involved in trade negotiations. You know as well as I do that it is very much a Commission competence. They protect it for EU members. No, it's not. They have a mandate.
They only deliver what they're authorised to deliver by the member states.
But once the mandate's agreed, over which we will have no veto. And let me come on to the other point. Do you accept that the EU could negotiate free trade arrangements on our behalf, and if we didn't like them, under your system, we would have no veto?
We wouldn't have a veto, you're quite right. But actually, the British market will be a very important component of what everybody was talking about. And it is absurd to believe that they would all follow the formality, have some lawyer sitting there saying you can't consult the British about this. The British will be asked to make some compromises.
You can't move in Brussels without lawyers.
No, on the surface,
it's a legal construct.
All I can tell you is I led for the government, in a British government, in the EU trade negotiations. It is a nuisance that we would not be a full member. When you get involved with talking about things, what you're really concerned with is business, trade. And lawyers are meant to solve problems, not turn up.
Let me bring Daniel, then I'll come to you.